Welcome to the Astronomical League video series. My name is John Goss, former president of the Astronomical League. This program is one of a series of presentations in conjunction with the 75th anniversary of the Astronomical League. The League was founded on November 15th, 1946, with about 1,500 members or so. Today we have over 18,000, approaching 19,000, spread across the United States with a number of international members as well. Today we have with us Bob Kerr, who is the program administrator coordinator of the Binocular Double Star program, which we'll be talking about in just a minute or so. The League is well known for a number of these programs. We have over 70 of them. And the whole idea is to try to get people out under the stars, to encourage them to explore what's out there and enhance their enjoyment of the night sky. Many of these programs deal with nebulas and clusters and planets and galaxies and so on. Well, today Bob's going to be talking with us about double stars, the League's Binocular Double Star program. So with that said, Bob, would you like to take things over and take it away?
Sure, John. Thanks very much for inviting me today. I look forward to talking about these programs. The Double Star program is particularly dear to my heart in as much as I had a chance to author it. And we're in our 10th year now. You folks were kind enough to give me a green light at Alcon when we were in Bryce Canyon. So we're celebrating the 10th year, by the way, in a big way. I've always enjoyed using binoculars in astronomy, and I kind of got my start in this program because of the binocular viewing that I've been doing prior to even joining AL. But the visual we're seeing now, of course, is the double star Alberio, or Beta Cygni, and that's particularly dear to my heart. When I was in high school, a gentleman took me under his wing. I wanted to grind a 6-inch mirror, and he invited me into his home shop. And the first night I was there, he said, "Come on out to the backyard, I'd like to show you something." And I was a teenager, so you know that was quite a while ago. And that was the most beautiful telescope I had ever seen. He had a machine shop in his basement, a homemade truss tube 8-inch. And he said, "Let me show you something." I was all eager, and I stuck my eye in the eyepiece. And of course, I was looking at Beta Cygni. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Not the first telescope I'd ever looked through. I had looked through a couple small refractors at high school, but I was so impressed with Alberio. And I remembered that. That's burned in my mind ever since. I love binoculars. I discovered very quickly that most members of our Astronomical League also love binoculars. And I think binocular viewing was a little underserved. We had, a couple of them. I know we had the Messier binocular and maybe Southern Skies binocular, but at the time we launched the Double Star binocular, I think there were only a handful. And now I think we have a roster of 8 or 9, and also a Binocular Master program that was launched. So I'm very happy about that. And I get a lot of feedback from members about their experience with binoculars. And we'll be talking a little bit about that as we go along. But I also am the coordinator on the Globular Cluster program, and which is entirely different, of course, relying on some pretty good aperture telescopes. But the feedback I get from the binocular programs is overwhelmingly more positive and more enthusiastic than the Globular Cluster program. So I'm very happy that things are working out so well with these binocular programs. So we definitely love binoculars. Here's some of the feedback I get, and I'm so proud to be able to share this with you. Now, I have kind of fun getting back to star hopping after 8 years with my go-to. I forgot what it was like finding stars myself. And that's it. We don't have go-to in this program. We don't have remote telescopes in this program. You got to get out there, get the binoculars in front of your eyes, and do the work yourself. I sure learned a lot about using binoculars with this program. And this is true. There's a lot to binocular viewing But the casual user of binoculars, you know, I sit in my chair at a star party and scan the Milky Way and go, this is a whole different thing. There's nothing more demanding in binoculars than binocular viewing of double stars. Nice to take a break from chasing faint fuzzies with the 14-inch and relax with the 20x80s in my comfy camping chair. People go down to the Texas Star Party and they spend a lot of time at the eyepiece and they want a break and they sit down, they get out their observing list and they knock off maybe 6 or 7 double stars as part of this. Wow, I didn't know I could see so many awesome double stars with binoculars. People repeatedly say I had no idea I could see double stars with binoculars. And yet it's incredible. The observing list for the regular program, and you know there's also an advanced program, is 120. I had a group of individuals help me. We vetted them all, and we learned a lot ourselves in going through that process, just sorting through them. So an observer who completes the program gets a number award certificate, and their name is published in the Reflector magazine, a wonderful quarterly publication that we can be so proud of. It stands up there with the big guys, if you know who I mean. And also entered into a searchable online database, as well as a wonderful lapel pin. I have yet to see anyone actually wear this on the lapel, but they've done other things with them. A gentleman that I know actually glues his to his tripod. And he said, Bob, I need a replacement for the binocular double star pin because it fell off somewhere in the observing field. So this, I take great pride in seeing this. A member at large, actually, named Gary Davis, sent me this after receiving his certificate and his pin with his binocular. He was very proud of receiving this. And I think that's one reason, I can't speak for all the coordinators, but it's why I do it. It's fun, and it's really great to see people feel rewarded and valued as a result of completing these programs. So there, as we know, there are many, many, many double stars in the night sky of all different configurations. I designed this to give people with binoculars double stars to view that I thought were interesting, and it's not exclusive to binary stars. We include line of sight stars. I've even included interesting star pairs. So they're varied, but no pretense at these being binary stars. But I wanted to give people a wonderful view through the binoculars at varying configurations of double stars. And we know they're everywhere. Interestingly enough, some of the best double stars are found in faint fuzzies or other deep sky objects that we love to look at with binoculars or telescopes. For instance, in the Pleiades, in Orion, the trapezium, the stars in there are observable, not all of them, but major stars. The Owl Nebula, or cluster rather, I think that's also called ET cluster. And then, of course, the Horse and Rider in Ursa Major. There's also a component of this that requires naked eye observations. So we just go on and on here, the nose of the steed and the beak of the hen, which is our Beta Cygni, has to be the most popular double star in the sky for justified reasons. But the important thing is that they find there are other double stars. We go out at night or maybe at a star party, or we ask a neighbor over and show them 2 or 3 of our favorite double stars. But most of the interesting ones are not even given a second thought. And this is a way of highlighting those to our members. This is from the website, and I would ask or suggest anyone that wants to delve further into this. I urge everybody watching to delve further into this. Get on the website, astroleague.org, on the drop-down Observe menu, and read the information here. We don't have a guidebook for this program, so when I wrote this, I tried to make it pretty informational. I don't know that it's overkill, But there's more information here about observing double stars than there is on the telescope double star site. So while they're different distinctive programs, I think anyone interested in double stars could benefit in reading this. Of course, there's a ton of information online as well. This is the observing list. As I said, there are 120 lists, 120 on the list of all sorts. We did set up parameters on this. As I said, we vetted them pretty thoroughly, and we learned a lot in the process. I know people like Sissy Haas have spent quite a bit of time in trying to determine what the proper instrument is if you want to split stars of given magnitudes and separations. Of course, when you're with the telescope, you can change the magnification. With binocular, you're pretty much resigned to whatever your magnification is, although I do permit a use of multiple binoculars. I have people using 2 or 3. It's amazing, in fact, how many members have this amazing variety of binoculars they use. And I'm okay with that. In fact, I love seeing logs where people have used 2 or 3 different size instruments on the same object, and they give me the feedback about what they can see. I can see it with the 20 by 80s, but I can't see it with the 15 by 70s or whatever. That's very interesting to me. I'm always learning. So we'll list the targets alphabetically. And the lotting designations, for the most part, are either the Bayer letters or the Flamsteed numbers, because most of these are bright, and the primaries are bright enough to carry them. Where they aren't, I listed by discoverer code. And I let people consult star maps as best they can, whether hard copy or apps or software.
I have a question for you. Could you state what the 5 naked eye double stars are? I'm curious at that.
Okay, let me review this. Any 5 on the observing list. And I'm going to cover that pretty soon, not to put off the question.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to jump ahead then. So.
Yeah, there are many naked eye double stars on this list. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people like me with bad eyesight, and we also give them an opportunity to compensate through additional observations on that. So I don't assign 5 specific double stars for naked eye. They go through and choose, just the way they choose the double stars that are more suitable for the capability of their optics. It's not someone with maybe a 15 by 70 won't be able to do what, you know, I've got people with overworks 25 by 100s working these programs, and to them, you know, there's no limitations. Most of the important thing, what we're going to talk about, is magnitude and separation, because that's what it's all about with any instrument, but particularly with binocular, because you can't change the magnification. There are 2 types of binocular, and I don't care what type of binocular they use. Bino viewers on telescopes are not permitted, but any size binocular, and as I say, I've seen some giant binoculars brought in, and that's okay, but I have high expectations. Don't give me the easy stars if you've got 100 aperture binocular. I'd like to see some of the tough ones. So either of these is suitable, and this isn't really a class in binoculars. I noticed an interesting one in the Facebook lineup by Mike Myers or Mike Murray. Very, very well done. The Boreal prism is generally favored because it's a longer focal length. The optical path is folded, so you got a longer focal length. And I haven't used much in the way of a roof prism, but it's my understanding about observers, they tend to favor the Boreal prism binoculars. But whatever you got would work. Aperture is important because what we're dealing with here in terms of being able to split double stars is the separation. Can we split? Can we separate these double stars with our optical instruments, or are they just one blob? And it comes down to the aperture and its ability to resolve fine detail. We look for that with our telescopes. what can we see in the bands of Jupiter? Or can we make out this or that? So where it comes to double stars, aperture is really important. Well, that's the idea, is can we get black space between the two objects? And I cut a little slack in this program if they're kissing or if they're fading in and out because of turbulence. I'll go along with that. In the advanced program, these stars must be split to count as an observation. Magnification too, we need sufficient magnification to obtain the necessary field to split two stars. So we've got to enlarge the view. It turns out that 7x50s is probably the smallest instrument that works. I've had only several people have done it with 7x50s, and they have to concentrate on wide separations and brighter stars, and it can be done. But for the most part, I'm seeing 20x80s. I think that is probably a very common instrument, although you're not going to hand hold 20x80s for any length of time. We'll cover a little bit of that pretty soon. So we want to maximize binocular performance. Unlike the faint fuzzy, I'll just go up and I'll look at M31. It doesn't matter if my binoculars are really in focus because everything's fuzzy anyway. But that's not the way it is with double stars. You've got to have crisp, tack-sharp point sources. So the first thing we want to do is make sure each eyepiece is individually focused for our eyes. And the binocular we're looking at here is center focus. And I can't remember right offhand if the center focus focuses, if you want to focus them individually, if it focuses one eyepiece and not the other. I'm a little bit uncertain of that. I'll have to check that out. But and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, is to hold the binocular with one hand, put a lens cap on the side of the binocular you're not using. And if you're going to start with your right eye, lens cap the left aperture, and go through them that way, and go in and out of focus, and you're wobbling because you're only handling with one hand. So it's going to take some effort, but that effort pays off. And of course, we also want to set the interpupillary adjustment correctly. And we know what that is. You just twist the binocular until you get one round circle, unlike what they show in the movies where they tend to show two circles. So that's pretty easy to do. That's kind of intuitive, I think. And the other thing is steadiness is what this is all about. You cannot split double stars, particularly close ones, if you're wobbling or being shaky with the instrument. So the heavier instruments in particular, even a lighter instrument, even a 7x50, it's amazing. You can't hold it up there for long without your arms getting a little bit shaky or wobbly. So it's really, really important that we come up with a way to stabilize these binoculars when we're trying to split particularly close double stars. We show a couple examples here. This is my lovely daughter who was kind enough to interrupt her camping trip to take some photos for me. Her husband, Mark, took them. So I said, good work, Catherine, good girl. And then there's a tripod isn't a really satisfactory way to mount. It'll mount binoculars, but they're almost impossible to use, particularly towards zenith. So some kind of an arm or a parallelogram is really the way to work this. And I see those more in the advanced program because you can't do that program without a parallelogram of some kind. There's some backstories to these that I'll get into in a minute. Then there's David's Bino transporter. He got this. It's a lounge chair you'd use out on your deck, and he modified it to. He's got these hand supports to help his legs, and he's got a wonderful. He's not holding these; they're kind of supported over his head from behind, and he in fact. This is June of 2021. I don't know how long this is going to be up, but this is current for right now, and it's in the current reflector. He said, "You think we could do an article on this invention of mine?" I said, "Go for it. You know, contact Christine. I'm sure she will." So he did, and I hope that provides people with some good ideas. So the other thing I would suggest is image stabilized binoculars. Now, that's a bone of contention, of course, because they do tend to be pricey. But I think they're really nice. Only a handful of people have done the program with IS binoculars, probably because of the cost. And I don't remember the aperture exactly. These Canon and others make them, and they make some pretty hefty binoculars. And the ironic part of this is that they're image stabilized, but they're still too heavy to support. So you got to stick one in a parallelogram anyway, and that's hard to swallow when you spent $2,000 on a binocular. This is a pair of my daughters, 12 by 36s. And what's interesting about them is they do amazing performance. Now, I think one of the key things is down here at the bottom of the screen. You've got to be patient and methodical. If you can't split these stars the first time because of turbulence or cloudiness or whatever, set them aside and come back to them. I've had people say it took me 3 times, but I finally split that star. Were they ever proud of that? And I'm proud of them for sticking with it too. So we feature several kinds of configurations. I've said before, we don't specialize in binary stars only. We have some pretty wide separations here. Some of them are line of sight. You know, according to the WDS, Washington Double Star Survey, almost a majority of stars listed there are unknown. They know the binaries, particularly now with the Parcos and with the Gaia. We're getting much better measurements on the stars. But anyway, on this observing list, we have a little bit of a variety. This is not particularly new information, but I want to review it anyway. When we're looking at stars, multiple stars, and I'm showing a quadruple here, the primary is labeled A, and the secondary is B, and then whatever other stars are C, D. And these are based basically on the magnitude of the stars. So when you're looking at a double star, the bright one is going to be A for the most part. You know, there are going to be exceptions to that, the way there is to everything, but you know that. I do have some visuals here that tend to be small, and I apologize if they're difficult to read if you're looking at me on a smartphone. I tried to get them as large as possible. This is the observing list, which we've seen before, and that's published in the on the website, so you have access to that. But I do want to focus for a little bit on magnitude and separations and the importance of that. We've got a couple of pairs we want to take a look at. We'll start in Andromeda with the 2 doubles we have there, and they both bear Flamsteed numbers. So this is 56 Andromedae. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to go through 4 stars here and compare them. So this is an easy one. Let's start with an easy one. And looking at the upper right, these stars are of similar magnitude, widely separated, very easy to split in virtually any binocular, very easy to split. And I urge people that are looking to start the program, go through the observing list, pick out a variety of stars, different magnitudes and different separations, see what you can do with your binocular before you start the list. Know what you're looking at based on the capability of your instrument. You know, if you don't have a 20 by 80, then do the best you can with what you do have. So we're going to come here and compare this with 59 Andromedae, and we've got kind of a different story here. Similar magnitudes, but tight separation. And this is going to be a difficult split because of there are people that think you can't separate 17 seconds of arc with a binocular, and they're going to be wrong, because we've got members splitting, getting splits down to 10 arc seconds. Okay, let's go back to this and take a look at couple doubles and Aries. Now the top one, we've got 5 and 8. We got quite a bit of separation here, but the dissimilar magnitudes is an issue. You've got the bright 5 magnitude star basically overwhelming your eyeball, and the 8 magnitude star is very hard to see. Not impossible, but we have to set our expectations as to what we're going to see. This I would classify as moderately difficult. And the next one is very difficult. Dissimilar magnitudes, tight separation, very difficult to split. Because the A component, the 5th magnitude component, is completely blasting out an almost 10th magnitude secondary. So those are kind of the considerations we're going to take as we go through the observing list and we get our binos on some of these stars. 33 star is going to be much easier to see under dark skies with great transparency. Not everyone's going to have the opportunity to do that. Many people say, I love this program because I can do it from my driveway. Well, that's great, but it would be a different program at the Texas Star Party, for instance. Now, I mentioned requiring and splitting 5 double star. You split the same 5 with the binocular, and you then go naked eye on that 5, and you compare what you're seeing. So we'll use Alcor and Mize are an example. Now, ideally, under a perfect world, and we know that's not attainable by anyone particularly, it's probably more theoretical than attainable. Naked eye observers should be able to detect stars at 6 magnitude. We've heard that forever. But you've got to be able to have a limiting magnitude of 6 in your sky to even come close to that. And not many of us do that unless we're getting to the star party somewhere in the dark sky site. And the human eye, an ideal human eye, not an old human eye like mine, should see at about 200 arc seconds. It has been done. Where those stars are fairly equal brightness, and that is the key to this whole thing. If you have fairly equal brightness, this becomes a lot less problematical than if you have mismatched doubles. So this is one of the double stars on the list to be observed with binocular and naked eye. And if anyone is going to do it, and not all members can do this, can meet this requirement, but if they can always do this one, because this is probably the easiest one. So I've already talked about that. Now, where eyesight prevents the observation of 5 naked eye, and more often than not, that tends to be a problem. I give them the option, I want to know the reason for it, that cataract surgery or whatever. They are able to substitute one additional binocular double. So if they can see with naked eye 4 naked eye skies, they got to give me one other. They're going to observe 51 stars because they're going to give me an extra binocular double in lieu of the naked eye split. That seems to work out just fine. I mean, most people don't observe just 50 anyway. It's like the M&Ms that you don't know when to stop, or the potato chips. I don't remember. But many of them just keep going. I guess I have not had anyone do the entire 120, but someone did 115, so they came close. Now, these are the naked eye stars. Someone was asking about that. I don't know if it's that you, John. This is just one page of the list, and we've got where you can see how many doubles we have there. So there's no end of doubles, and these are fairly wide separations. I don't know whether the separation column is the second one over from the right. That gives you the separations, and there are some pretty wide separations. We've got a bright set in Scorpius at 877 arc seconds. So That's another one that I commonly get captured. So the requirements are spelled out online, and as for all of the programs, there's a set of specifications. And we recently went through, Aaron did, with maybe the help of both of you, and made the specifications requirements a lot clearer. And I think that was a really good move. So I won't review these here, but this program can be submitted either to the club Alcor or observing coordinator officer for approval, or they can send them directly to me, whatever their choice is. And anyone finishing this can, of course, move on to the advanced program, and I do encourage them to do that. I always send a little welcome, welcome to the club, and congratulations, and please consider moving on to the advanced program. And down at the bottom here, circled, is the list of double star programs, or I'm sorry, Binocular Master Star Observer Award programs we have. And a lot of them were just recently added. After I added the advanced program, I had a member, I think it was out there with you in Pennsylvania, Al, I don't remember exactly his name or his club affiliation. And he said, gosh, I love using my binoculars so much. Can't there be like an award that you could win, like comparable to the Master Observers Award for binocular work? Well, at that time, I think we had maybe 4 binocular programs, I don't recall. I just kind of mentioned it to Aaron. I said, maybe that's a good idea. And then, lo and behold, probably with the help of both Maynard and Al, and probably you too, John, came up with this award. And since I have to observe 2 of my programs to do that, I can, and the advanced being the most difficult, I can kind of track the progress in getting that award. So that is the summary, the overview for this. Tried to not make it too complicated or wordy because I do refer people to the AL website. So of course we always wish people clear skies and good luck. And I'm waiting for your logs to come in. Are there any questions, gentlemen? Hello?
Okay, Bob, that was wonderful. I'm wonderful in several ways. Your graphics were really great. They're really clear. They explain things. They exactly told you what you needed to know. But I like how you started off with your, I will call it your oh wow moment, looking at Albireo.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of us have that type of moment, which gets us more into the hobby. It kind of confirms what we're doing, and that it really inspires us. So that I think that is cool. And then recounting some of the reactions from people that you've received, it's very heartening. I think that again, that's very inspiring. It shows what a great program this is. I went and grabbed my binoculars right now, and
wow, all right.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. Of course, it's only so, but it's a great program, and I think that the great thing about binoculars is that it takes you less than 1 minute to set up. I could be out. I'm going to go do this. 1 minute later, I'm outside with binoculars, and then 15, 20 minutes later, I'm back inside. So it's not like a telescope, which can be quite a chore.
Well, I've heard that, John. I could actually add that to that series of quotes. I've heard that any number of times.
Oh yeah.
I just ran out with my binos and got 6 of your and went back in the house. That's a good thing.
That's great. That is really good. I think I also wanted to give a plug for the general idea of star parties, because at star parties, there's going to be 50 to 500 people there, depending on the size of this. And there's bound to be a number of people with binoculars, with binocular setups, such as tripods, but also the parallelogram setups and some of these fancy observing chairs. Right. That's a really good thing to go and see. And you can see for yourself if it's for you. Think, oh no, this is too much trouble, or this is great, or this is just what I need. So it gives you a good idea, and then you can start pursuing some of this other stuff, because you got all this great great equipment out there.
John, if I could interrupt you just for while we're on that subject, uh, the sharing of the observing experience of star parties.
Yeah.
I always have done that. Come on over here and see Saturn, or look what I found, whatever. I really discourage that where it comes to binocular viewing. It could take 20 minutes to get your focus set up, but with binoculars. It's not as simple as walking up and just readjusting your telescope eyepiece. If somebody comes up and starts messing with the focus on your binoculars, it's a whole nother issue, because then you're really back to square one. But maybe that's because mine are so out of whack, because my vision's so out of whack. But I certainly support your idea about star parties for sure.
And I have a gripe here, which you've kind of expressed, is that when people talk about what you see through binoculars and they draw it, or you look in the media when they draw through binoculars, they'll have two circles right next to each other. You never see that. It's one round field of view. They really haven't looked through binoculars themselves.
That's kind of a cliche. You see it all the time in movies. The actor puts the binoculars to his eye and you see two circles, right?
Well, in the movies, they also look at the telescope on the wrong end, especially if it's reflector. So
terrible what you see.
I will add one thing to what John said about the defense of binoculars at star parties. A lot of us tell folks who ask the question, what's the best telescope to start with? And I see people buying these huge telescopes right off the bat. And we often encourage, start with binoculars. And I think if you can have an experience with binoculars at a star party, that can let them know, oh, I can see some things, and I've already got a set of binoculars. What they may not have is some sort of stand or a tripod. I've got one of these tripods that I can stand straight up and just look, and it's a tall tripod, and I'm not bending over or hunching over. And but I think if we can introduce some folks who are interested, intimidated by the telescope, but hey, here are some things you can start with your own binoculars you've got in your closet. That could be a good thing. And so I think you're onto something there.
I agree with that.
You can see a lot with binoculars. As you gave the list of all the binocular programs, and your ideas, or you're thinking of, geez, maybe there ought to be some big summary there of a master binocular program. Well, that certainly all makes sense. The binoculars can see, well, of course they can't see the dimmest of the dim, but then again, as I was saying a few minutes ago, it just takes you 1 minute to go outside and take your observation. So there's a definite.
I will occasionally have a member say, I wasn't sure I was looking at the right, I checked it with my telescope. All right, all right, I might do the same thing. I'm okay with that as long as it's clear to me that they went back and they did see it in their binocular.
Yeah. Well, I think your presentation was wonderfully done, and it's a good way of starting out, because if you find out that you don't really like it, okay, it's just a pair of binoculars that you've sunk money into that you can use for other things. So you don't want to go buy a huge telescope and then find out you don't really like it. So start out with binoculars that helps you learn the night sky, learn the constellations.
Absolutely.
Learn the brighter stars, learn how to find your way around and all that. This is
all the binocular programs, you're star hopping. I like that. Like the one comment I had, gee, I haven't star hopped in a long time. It's kind of fun. You do learn the constellations. You're forced to do that, to do these programs, and there are people to do that work.
Bob, I appreciate you leading us through this, and I think this is a good program, and I think all of the binocular programs are worthwhile. I really do.
Yeah, Bob, I'd like to thank you for you taking your time today to give this program, and over the past few years at keeping this program going, monitoring it, and doing all the administrative work for it. Programs like this are so important for the amateur astronomer and the Astronomical League, because it
sure.
really helps people get out there under the stars. Because of efforts by people like you, our organization is made much stronger, and our hobby itself is made much more rewarding. Um, you've probably heard many times people go out under the stars trying to find something, and they get out there and they think, now, what should I look at? Oh, I'm going to look at
Right.
M13 again, for the
Right.
50th time. And it's programs like this help show people the wide range of objects. And all that is made possible because of people like you. The
So
astronomical.
John, we have a wonderful organization overall, but I enjoy working, for instance, with Aaron Clevenson, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. Very supportive, probably one of the busiest people I've ever known, but always has time to answer questions. I do interact with their other coordinators. I think we have a wonderful structure, and I do it because I get enjoyment seeing these logs come in. It's sort of vicarious for me. I love reading logs with notes. I'm out here, I'm gonna get somebody will write me a log. I'm having some chocolate right now, sitting here wondering what I should tackle next. Oh, I love to hear that loon in the background. I mean, I'm right there with them. People that write that, that's incredible. That's why I do this. I love that.
Yeah, that's all part of something I like to call the authentic observing experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great feeling that you get. That's just wonderful. Well, if that's all, I think we'll sign off now, and
Okay.
we'll see you all in cyberspace again. Again, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Maynard, for joining us, and Al, who had to check out here a few minutes ago. So,
Nice.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, John.